Hi, welcome to another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast, brought to you by Inquire Hire, where we give insight and guidance from successful Black professionals. My name is Ashley Quire, and as always, thank you for tuning in. Joining me today is Ariel Johnson. She works in the area of politics, so we're going to go through her unique journey and all of the things she learned along the way. At the beginning of our podcast, we like to hand it over to our guests and give you the floor, give you bragging time. Who is Ariel Johnson?
Well, hello, and thank you, Ashley, for having me on. I really appreciate that and the opportunity to talk with all of you today and listen for your questions. So, yeah, I am. I'm a policy and political person. I like to think of myself as an advocate first. My the work that I'm passionate about is education equity. So very much social justice oriented. But I would not be sitting here on this in this conversation with you if not for a series of opportunities that fell into place for me along in my education journey. So that's kind of how I landed in that space, and the policy and politics kind of came extraneously after. But yeah, I'm born and raised in Chicago. I'm a South Sider. I'm still on the South Side, though not in the neighborhood I grew up in. My parents are still there though. So I'm on the far Southeast side often. So if you're a Pullman person like me, yeah, I work for the Illinois Network of Charter Schools and our affiliate sister organizations, Inc.'s Action, which does political work. We support high quality candidates who are running for office, both incumbents and those who are running against incumbents, depending on what the race is. And we do work at the state house level, so state rep, state senate, and then also at the local level in the aldermanic races, and sometimes in the mayor's race, depending on how competitive those are. So we were certainly involved last year's race. So that's the quick down and dirty. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you for bragging. That was beautiful. That was awesome. Right? All right. So tell me a little bit about, I know Ariel from high school. We're not aging ourselves. But tell me a little bit. What was that?
For high school. We met in 7th grade.
Oh my gosh, we did meet in 7th grade. These years are blending together. Again, not aging ourselves. So tell me a little bit about your childhood and your family makeup. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I was lucky to have both of my parents in my home. However, I am very close to my mom. My dad struggled quite a bit with substance abuse and addiction issues. And so it really shaped the way our family structure operated. And I wouldn't say it was, I mean, for those who've dealt with those issues, it was not easy. And it was one of those things that I hid quite often from folks and didn't talk about. I definitely didn't talk about it in high school. And Ashley, you'll remember, because our high school was not the kind of place where you shared. It was just
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You just didn't talk about those sorts of things, and you didn't talk about, especially if you were a lower income kid of color who was on scholarship. You just kind of trucked along and did what you had to do. And so I give so much of the credit of who I am and the work that I do to my mother, who just is everything. She's crazy. Denise but she is a 34-year veteran of Chicago Public Schools. So she's still at the same school that she's been at since I was 5. She's been through, many, many principals, and she travels away from the South Side all the way to the West Side every single day and back. But she loves those kids, and she loves her school, and she puts everything into her, making sure kids have what they need. And I think that she instilled a lot of the idea of like education equity in me from just watching her. We didn't even talk about it, just like seeing some of the things that she would do and how she would come home and talk about these kids, even when she was frustrated with them. So yeah, that was, listen, for all of the things that were challenging in my childhood related to my dad, there were a million things that were positive, just from the relationship that I had with my mom to getting access. I mean, Ashley, you and I met in a program called SciHat. Initially the program was created by our high school to help kids of color get into schools like St. Ignatius, which are generally, there's a barrier to get into those schools, especially if you're low income, especially if you're a kid of color. And it has nothing to do with how smart, how ambitious you are. It has everything to do with the resources you have to get into schools like that. And so we met in 7th grade doing this SciHat program. And that program really shaped and defined me. I hated it. I hated it so much when we ran it.
Mrs. B, if you're watching, she was our the director of the program.
Yep.
I love the program. This is all on her. Okay, I loved it. Go ahead, continue. Just wanted to give that disclaimer.
Yeah, no, I love Miss B, and in fact, I just saw her last week via Zoom. Love Miss B, Miss Bresnahan, love Miss B, but it was a summer school program. It was like 9 to 12 you were in class, and then 12 to 3 you had they call discovery activities, which I loved my friends in the program. Like I love the people that I hung out with, and some of those folks I'm still really tight with today. But I was a smart kid, and I was like, why am I in summer school? Like I did what I was supposed to do all school year. Why am I sitting here doing speed math on Monday at 9 a.m., not understanding that foundation was critical to me getting into Ignatius and therefore setting a path for me that eventually lands in law school, first generation college student, law school, all of those things. I mean, that was the beginning of that path. But of course, like 12-year-old me didn't know that. So I'm, very grateful for those experiences as well. And I attribute that to a mother who knew like, okay, we got something different with this kid. Like you can't just sit at home in the summer. You have to go and like do something and use your brain. Thanks, Mom. I thank you now. Yeah.
Sometimes they just know what they're talking about, I mean, at that age, you're kind of like over it, especially in the summer, like you said. We don't want to sit through extra classes. I felt the same exact way. Again, I love the program, though, Mrs. B. But, you want to be out with your friends. You want to go to the beach, and we're sitting in class with uniforms, essentially. The same SciHat shirts every day, same color. So I get you on that. But, no, I do agree. It definitely shaped me as well, just with discipline and just what to expect, right? And so I guess that's why I said that we met in high school, because the program was held at the high school that we eventually both went to and we loved. And we can talk about that a little bit more if you want to, but that's great. I also love that you talked about you're vulnerable and actually opened up about your father and I guess how his substance abuse shaped you. But then I also love how you brought it back and went into how there's always something positive out of it, right? If you hadn't gone through that, it might have, you might be somewhere else. You might not have learned some type of lesson out of it. So I do appreciate that. Not everyone's family is nice and rosy, and not at all. We're not going into mine. We're just going to talk about yours. So I love that you opened up, and I can definitely relate to, struggling with parents and things like that. So that's beautiful. I'm so happy that you shared that.
Of course. Yeah.
So, I read applications. I've been reading applications for I don't know how many years now. My background's in admissions, and as we're looking through applications, one thing that we know is major prep. What have you done? You're applying to be an English major. What activities or classes have you taken or been a part of to prep you for the major that you're requesting? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was actually a double major. I majored in English and philosophy, and I minored in Spanish. And so let me be very clear, though, that you and I had opportunities to go to a school that afforded us a million chances, a million opportunities to do different things. So I didn't know that I was going into English when I first got to college. And philosophy was not on my radar whatsoever. It didn't even occur to me. But I had taken AP English. I was a good writer. I had been a good writer since I was, I got an accolade or something in class in like 6th or 7th grade. My then English teacher published something in a newspaper for me that I had written. And I was like, whoa, okay, I guess I'm okay with this. He was also the teacher that like didn't quite understand that calling a kid out in class and being like, so out of 100 points, Ariel got 110. Maybe don't do that. Shh. Just like, let me ride, bro. Chill. But that was like an indication for me where I like didn't have that with math. With math, it was constantly like, I have to work my tail off to get to do well. I wasn't allowed to bring home less than B's in my house, but to get that B or B plus or A minus in math, I was killing myself. I didn't enjoy it. I had such passion for reading and analyzing. And so by the time I got to senior year of high school, and I'd taken all these great English classes in AP and did well in the AP exam. I was considering that as an option for college, but I know every school, every high school, and this is why I do education equity work. I know every high school does not have opportunities and does not have like the classes to like set you up for that. And that's okay. That is okay. There are still things that you can do to prepare yourself. It just means like I came in a little bit ahead. I came in with an AP credit. That's fine. Not everyone has to do that. So that was my prep. And then obviously ACT prep and those sorts of things. I think they've switched over to the SAT now in the state. I would not have passed. Actually, we were ACT people. We didn't Illinois had the ACT contract. They switched over a couple years ago and now it's SAT. So good luck to all of you young people.
I mean, this year it's not required for many schools. So, but yes, continue. Go ahead. But yes, the ACT, thank goodness, because my attention span just wasn't for me. Shouldn't say that out loud. But
that's real. That's so real. Like I am historically not a great standardized test taker. That's just not, I don't think that's always a good measure of how students achieve. Mm-hmm. And so to hold kids accountable when they're applying, making a big decision like applying to college to like a particular number that you score on a test when you could be, you have anxiety, you have stress. And in our community, we didn't really talk about anxiety like that when I was growing up.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that was pushed under the rug. And no.
If someone had just explained to me like, oh, what you're experiencing is extreme anxiety around test taking because you're an overachiever and you're a high achiever. And when I always like if I didn't achieve where I needed to be, I was somehow failing myself and my mother who was putting her all into making sure I had what I needed. And here I am not achieving at the level I should be. What is that? It's like, yeah. So I wish we talked more about like, it is okay if you have test anxiety. It is the testing. It isn't, it's the way the world works and the structure of the world, but I promise you it does not make or break you. It will be okay. It will be okay. So yeah, I hope that our young people know that what you're feeling, that heat, that pit in your stomach, that heat in your head, that like, I have forgotten everything I thought I knew. You didn't. And it's okay if you don't, do amazingly the first time. Take it again. What's the worst that happens?
Yes. If you have the opportunity to take it again, please take it again.
Yep.
Definitely. Thank you so much for opening up about anxiety, right? That's something I feel like I still hear that in my family. It's like, you guys are fine. Everything's fine. No, you might actually be stressing out and it's normal. And there are ways to cope, right, around that kind of thing. So
healthy ways to cope. And honestly,
right.
What I would say is that if we talked more about anxiety and depression and mental health with our kids when they're younger, we may not have adults who engage in substance abuse, right? Mm-hmm. Potentially, but like there's a level of like self-medication when you're frustrated and sad and upset, and that's because we have to do better at being like, it's okay, you're sad. You might be really sad. Like. You might have a lot of stress. Let's talk about that.
Yes. Especially, I'm sure there's a lot of stress for Black students going to predominantly, white colleges or, just being the first at, first one in your family to go to college. So I did want to dive into your college experience at John Carroll. Everyone's experience is different. How was your experience being a Black female at John Carroll?
Yeah. I think because I went to Ignatius, I was well prepared for what to expect. Yeah. I knew what it was going to be one of few. So John Carroll was not so let me just be clear. I loved my university. We went to go visit Carroll. We did 4 schools in like 2 days in Ohio, all across the state. And it was ridiculous. My mom and I got in my car with my best friend from high school, actually. I'm still best friends with today. Got in the car and we drove to Ohio and we visited all of these schools. And like one tour, I just like left in the middle. John Carroll was the very last school we saw on this. And I was so tired. I was tired of people trying to pander to me and like trying to like oh, we have such diversity here. You have no diversity on this campus. Don't even lie and say that. And I get to Carroll, and it just felt, someone said, like, it's going to feel right when you step on campus. And it was not my first, so again, I wasn't even looking at schools in Ohio. I wanted to go to Boston College. But Boston College came back with a scholarship package, and the scholarship package was whack. It was whack. And I knew then I was going to law school. And I sat down with my college counselor, which again is a privilege to have a college counselor. That was my counselor. And I was like, I want to go here. And he was like, no, you can't afford this. He's like, you need to go to a different school. So Boston College is the Jesuit Catholic University. So is John Carroll. He was like, look at this school in Ohio. And I was like, Ohio, yikes. Like, yikes. That I stepped on this campus and this tour, and it was like exactly like the brochure. There were kids in the quad laying out, reading books. There were kids of color running around. I was walking through one of the academic halls, and a couple of professors just kind of stopped and said, oh, are you on a tour? Hey, what do I major in? Blah, blah, blah. Like, let's have a conversation. I was like, wait, these people actually care. They actually want to talk to you. Not a part of the tour at all. Just random professors walking through being like, you should come here. Here's why. Like, I'm in the economics department. Won't be doing that, but so it, all of that to say, it was not without challenges, right? Being a Black kid and being still a low income Black kid at a PWI, you have to navigate, to learn advocacy and agency, you have to learn to ask questions, learn to ask for what you need. Like, you need a book stipend, ask for a book stipend. They have them. Like, you need, you get a bill in the mail about your tuition and you have a gap there. They have work study. They can figure it out. And if you are a hardworking kid of color, they want to keep you on campus. It does not behoove them to bring their numbers down. They need that additional diversity. They get federal dollars for that. Like, they want you there. Ask for what you need and harass them. I spent so much time in the financial aid office that eventually they gave me a job, and I became a tour guide.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Being persistent pays off. I always say that, but they gave you a job after that?
I was a tour guide for 3 years. I became a tour guide my sophomore year. So I was one of those backwards walking kids. Mm-hmm. You learn to walk backwards very well. You learn where all the poles are in the school, so you don't hit anything. And I loved it. And so my experience, I think, was not unique, but was very curated. Like, I knew going in what I had to do to be successful, and I knew that I couldn't you're going to experience racism. You're going to experience, if you're a woman, absolutely sexism, especially if you're a Black woman. You're going to experience economic disparities and people who do not understand that, like, I actually have to work. So you find your people. You find your poor white people. They exist. I found a whole little crew of them. You find your other kids of color who are trying to make it and you find the black student, like whatever the Black Alliance Association type things are. You find a multicultural office. And sometimes you just need a space where you're not around anybody else but our people. You go sit in the multicultural office and you just vent and you do what you got to do and you play spades, whatever, to get your mind right. And feel free to also getting off campus for me and learning Cleveland. It felt so much like Chicago in so many ways, much smaller, but it just, find those hole in the wall Black spots. Like sometimes I just really wanted, like, there's no Heralds in Cleveland, but I really wanted something akin to that. So I'm like, I'm gonna go and find it. And it gave me a little bit of sense of home. And you take all those different experiences and you try to create the best community you can while you're there. Remember, it's 4 years. It's supposed to be fun. Work hard, but you're supposed to learn and grow and challenge, and you'll challenge yourself. There are misconceptions I had about folks that I had to challenge, especially when you're in a debate in class, or you got to learn how to navigate that without, you can't pop off. You can't sometimes you want to curse somebody out. Sometimes you just want to do it. You can't. But you develop your community. And at the end, I will say by the end of the 4 years, I'd done enough of that work where I was chosen as our class graduation speaker. And I was the first Black person to do that. And at that time, the 125 years of our school's existence. And I did that. Thank you. But it was because I had developed that community and don't let the small stuff get to you. Crazy people are everywhere.
They are. Pick your battles.
Pick your battles.
They're going to be there. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's 1,000% right. They're going to be there, especially at the predominantly white colleges. And just know going in, it's going to happen. Hold your head up high, walk in your integrity. And if you have questions, find a staff member, or like she said, the multicultural office, the Black Student Union. Ask them for advice. Ask them for help. That's what I mean. They're more than willing to give you that insight and give you that help and give you that guidance, because if they're working there, they've probably experienced the same exact things that you're experiencing. So 1,000%. I love that you. Thank you. And congratulations. That's amazing. I didn't even know that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's a testament to like, you can do this. You can, Black kids, for me, it was like I had grad students coming up to me. So the graduation and the undergrad are the same day, coming up to me being like, I was just so proud. And so not about me at all. It was for me, I hope that it was a reminder to the undergrads who were underneath me and some other folks, like, one, you can apply for this. You can do well. Like, you are not bound. You don't have to be like, I feel like they put the low income kids of color over in a corner somewhere. No. And also, when you're looking at schools, ask those questions. Like, I want to know what you do when someone calls you the N-word or does something like racially challenging. Like, what's the procedure? What are your protocols? What are your community standards? I want to know, like, what have you done in the past? Because talk is cheap. You can put a diversity number all over your brochures, but if I ask you what you do when, someone comes up to you, says something absolutely crazy, I want to know, what is their protocol and procedure? If the answer is no, think about that. The answer was not no at Carroll. I remember asking some of those questions. And again, finding your community. Because it was a predominantly white institution, I had a lot of predominantly white friends. What I found was, because of the community that I created, there were times when crazy stuff would happen and I wouldn't even have to say anything. Some of my white friends would be on 10 and I'd be like, yo, Caroline, that's a level 4 issue. If you're going to be a level 10, every time a white person says some crazy stuff, you're going to be fighting forever. You don't have to take it down, man. Because I had a good group. And they'd be like, what you're not going to do, but you're not, with the neck roll, with the neck and the finger. All right. Go ahead, Megan. You take it, girl. You get them. Find your people. Find your people so that you don't have to fight. They let them do it. Yeah.
1,000%. That is so funny. Oh my gosh. No, even as adults, I mean, when you get into adulthood, it's kind of like, when you get into college, you're like, wow, is this high school? You guys still didn't learn that? As an adult, I feel like we're the same way. Corporate America, I feel like it continues. So like we said, pick your battles, find your group, and just walk in your integrity. Be great, right?
Be great.
I love that. All right. So you did mention that grad students came to you to congratulate you, graduating from undergrad. And it looks like you went straight into law school. What was law school like? I mean, I never considered law school, so that's not something that I even have done too much research, digging into. But what is that like? I feel like that's something, when you're growing up, your parents are like, you could be a lawyer, a doctor, or a teacher, right? Like, those are the three that they kind of throw at you, but they don't give you that insight. I don't know. Growing up, I didn't know any lawyers personally, so I wouldn't even know what their day-to-day looked like or the different opportunities that lie within, after going through law school, what can you get into after? And so I guess let's just start with what was that like for you?
Yeah. So I was one of those kids that knew I wanted to be a lawyer when I was really young. I was like 7 walking around saying I wanted to be a lawyer. And when you are young and when you are, again, generally low income and a kid of color, and you're talking about, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, people kind of condescendingly pat you on the head with like oh, that's cute. But that, like, I knew in high school that I was going to law school. What I didn't know is that combine my love of wanting to be a lawyer with education, and I could make a career out of that. I found that out in law school. It was hard. I've always been academically inclined. I've always worked hard. I've always done well. Law school kicked my tail. Now I did fine. I did well. I did not do as well as I did in college. And I was like, what is this? So the problem is that you go to law school and everyone's smart, right? So like you might rise to the top in your university, but then you get to law school and everyone came out of their class with 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, right? So you're competing with people who are just as smart and smarter than you are. And it's not like, math, science, things you've seen before. Some of this stuff, the concepts are so different. My first year, and every law student, no matter what university you go to, takes the same classes. We all take the same kind of core classes the first year of school. And I can remember looking at, multiple of our books, and I'm like, this is just straight in Latin. What, the whole book is in Latin. Like, I took Spanish. What is this? But of course, a lot of these terms are historical and based in the Latin text. And so you learn them, they become, it's fine. I think the one advantage I had was that I pretty much worked full time all the way through college. I was probably working 40 hours a week sophomore year through senior year. And so it wasn't strange for me to be working and taking on internships and taking on different jobs while I was in law school. One, because I had bills to pay. Like, I was not the kid whose parents were paying for them to be there. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of folks whose parents are giving them stipends to live off of. That was not my situation. I was like, I had rent. And because of the relationship with my parents, and my dad in particular, I could not move home. So I couldn't come home. So my mom got sick my senior year. She's fine. But she got sick my senior year. I was intent on going to school in DC. You couldn't have told me that I wasn't going to be on the Hill doing some work. I was going to Georgetown. That's where I wanted to be. And then my mom got really sick, and I made a quick decision to come home to go to Loyola. And it was the best decision. I needed my mama so badly during law school. That stuff was hard. But I also had this community, the Chicago community already, which gave me an opportunity to like work and try new things and have these internships, which took the sting out of the fact that I wasn't going to be the straight A student. So I knew that early on, like, okay, you're not going to be the kid that has a 4.0 in law school. So you need to figure out a way to distinguish yourself. How are you going to make your resume stand out from all of these other kids who are white, rich, wealthy, whose parents are lawyers, whose parents are judges? Like, how are you going to make yourself stand out? And for me, that was doing as many different internships and externships and different job opportunities as humanly possible, and then finding fellowships to pay for them because I couldn't work for free. So that was my experience. So there are a couple national fellowships. I was a national fellow for a couple different fellowships around the country multiple times in order to pay for me to do these intern and externships. And I clerked for a judge, and I did some civil rights equity work. I worked for the district. I did so many different things. By the time I graduated, my resume looked like, oh, this girl really wants to hustle. And it was all in the social justice, like help people space. Which really helped me land the job that I wanted right out of school, which was working. I wanted to work with CPS in their law department, which I did. I did for a year and a half, and loved it. But I wanted to do more. So yeah, long story short, it was hard, but it was worth it. You definitely have to be someone that is willing to put 110% in, because unlike undergrad or in other grad school programs, they will cut the bottom 10 or 15% of your class. So don't get caught up because you might get kicked out.
I'm sorry. Can you go into that a little bit more? Yeah. That's important.
So the grades are curve based, right? So, and the curve is steep. There are only so many people in your class who are going to get there's a small amount of a few amount of A's, a few amount of B's, a lot of C's, and then a lot of D's and failures. That's just how the curve works. And so you want to really hope that you are, because even if your answer was right, if it's not as right, you don't get half credit points. Like it is what it is. If you don't, you have too many of those C's, too many of those, I was lucky enough to avoid C's in law school, but you brings your GPA down. at the end of your freshman year, or not freshman year, your 1L year, in your 1L year, if you aren't making the grade, they'll give you a chance to fix it, but then they'll cut you. A lot of law schools are like this. They just cut their bottom 10%, and some schools cut their bottom 15%. It's like a weed out program. So it's not for the faint of heart.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Oh my. Thank you for highlighting that. I actually didn't know that bit of information.
Good times had by all.
Oh my. I can only imagine getting in and paying that tuition and hustling, and then
they're like, bye. Luckily, Loyola, like my university, another Jesuit Catholic school, it's not. I keep mentioning that because the Jesuits have this social justice thing they do, where their whole mission is to kind of call people in, high quality education, that sort of thing. They did, I think, do a better job than probably most universities in making sure that you have you could ask for help. You could have the structure and support that you needed if you went and asked the right questions. But again, that takes advocacy skills, right? It takes ask and going to figure it out. And a lot of law school students, like med school, like anybody, there's some pride there, right? And there's some pride with going to your dean and being like, I need help. I had already gotten over my pride in high school and college. Like when you pour, like you gotta get over your pride really quickly. So I had going to law school being like, so about these scholarships, about, I can remember taking a class my third year. And third year, they say law school, first year scares you to death, second year works you to death, third year bores you to death. And this is real. By the time you're third year, you figured it out. You just trying to get out at this point. I took this elective class on like the media and constitution or something like that. I thought it was gonna be really interesting and like an easy class. It was not an easy class. This professor clearly had not gotten the memo. We were all third years, and she was assigning us like hundreds of pages of reading a week. And we would be like, at this point, we're all working. We all have full-time jobs. Like they're called intern and externships, but in law school, you're paid. So like we have full-time, we have cases. Like at that point, you can get what's called a 7-Eleven license once you finish so many credits. And a 7-Eleven license essentially lets you practice as long as you have a supervising attorney over you. But when you work in the nonprofit space, the supervision is not as succinct because they're busy. So what they usually do is they hand you a stack of cases and they say, go finish these cases, come to me if you need some help, but figure it out. That was all of us third year. We were just trying to figure out like, how does the Daily Center work? Because just getting around the elevator banks in the Daily Center, they don't all go to the same floors. It's like learning how to get off at 7, then go over to the other bank to go to 12. Like they don't all, so just like figuring that out, learning all the clerks, learning the process of being an attorney. We were busy. Did not have time for your 1,000-page reading assignment for an elective class that does not go towards my certificate or my degree. And I can remember going to my dean, and it was the day after we were allowed to drop classes. And I was like, I need to drop this class. And he's like, it's going to be a withdrawal on your transcripts. And I was like, it cannot be a withdrawal on my transcripts. I'm a third year. I'm applying for jobs. I cannot have a W on my transcripts. I had to drop this class though. Love me. He made it happen. But that was
great. Okay, good.
Because I had developed a relationship with him. He knew that I worked really hard. I was like, I just need this one little favor because this lady is tripping. Help me help you. I'm going to give back. Can I have W on the transcript? But I'm also not about to read these 400 pages. I'm not doing it. That is only go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, relationships are great. I mean, just networking as soon as you can. We always preach networking. Talk to people. Get out there. Get out of your comfort zone, That's amazing that you were able to go to your dean the day after, because I can only imagine how annoying that is on the back end Anyway, that you're able to pull that off, right? But that's because you had established that relationship and you're able to remove that from your transcript. That is insane. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's
right. I mean, that was the worst thing that would have happened in that situation. I would have had to stay in the class and actually do the work, which would have been fine. again, I get my point of that story is to say that when you work really hard and you develop relationships, sometimes people give you favors and do things for you that they probably shouldn't because they know who you are as a person, as a student. And that was one of those instances where I was really glad for that relationship. I mean, I had traveled abroad with this dean. We went to London to watch a criminal case happening in the London courts. So we had a long-standing relationship over the 3 years that I was there. So make those allies, like make those friends so that when you actually do need something or you have to pull a fast one sometimes, you have people to help you do it.
Very true. Very true. I love that. That's hilarious. But I'm happy it worked out.
Yeah. I was like, I was saying like white kids in particular have opportunities to do that kind of stuff all the time, right? Like they have access. So like, as you get further along in your career, you start to build your own access. Don't be afraid to use it because your white counterparts have no problem using their, pulling those chits when they need to.
Oh, for sure. I mean, our parents are long time, college friends or whatever, right? And so that's how they're able to, establish those networks because they've had, their parents and neighbors and all of that to help them out. So yes, go for it. Meet people, be friends, right? All right. So take us through your career journey. You kind of, is there anything else you want to add to your career journey? We've kind of heard where you started and how you ended up being in an amazing position right now, chief of staff. I am so happy I know you. Here's a friend. Look at this. This is exactly what she's talking about. I said, hey, Ariel, how are you doing? Wow, you're amazing. Let's do this podcast. She said, sure, Ashley, why not? Right? So establish those relationships. Is there anything else you wanted to add as far as like your career or anything that you learned along the way?
Yeah. So I navigated some things really interestingly because of some of the different opportunities that I had. I started off doing civil rights constitutional work on behalf of students with disabilities. And I loved that work because it's grounded in the law. There's lots of federal law around students who have disabilities, and that could be anything. And these are education disabilities in particular. So it could be something as simple as ADHD, which I know is not simple to kids who have it, but in the comparison of like the spectrum, it could be as an easy issue to solve like ADHD, or it could be you are severe and profound and you need lots of different supports and a therapeutic day school and all, a lot of resources. And so the work that I was doing for a long time, pretty much all through law school up until right when I got out, was working on cases where students were disproportionately affected by the school system because usually they were kids of color with the diagnosed disability and they were not getting the supports they needed. And I hated that for those kids because their parents sometimes didn't know how to, again, agency and advocacy. We aren't always taught that in our communities. And so the parents would know that something was wrong, but wouldn't know how to ask for help. And then the cases would come to us and we'd be suing the district, like we'd be suing the school district. And you don't sue them for money. You sue them for what we call compensatory education, which is you need to give those students access to the education they were supposed to have. If you are a kid with ADHD, for example, or oppositional defiance disorder, and you are supposed to have these supports in your IEP to make sure that you have what you need to get to be successful in school, and the school did not provide you those supports, they cannot flunk you and fail you out of school. They cannot kick you out. They cannot do all of these things. The law is very clear about that. And what I learned is that oftentimes schools didn't know the law themselves, or they didn't have the resources. I went into that work thinking, oh, these school districts, they just want to hurt these kids. They want to be terrible to these students. And of course they don't. No educator wants that. No educator actually wants to hurt a child. No, no good one. I've yet to encounter one that's like just so complacent and disrespectful that they just wanted to hurt a student. But I did encounter were a lot of educators who were at the end of their rope, who were exhausted, who did not have the resources, the funding, the manpower to do what they were supposed to be doing per the law. And that changed my perspective. It's why I wanted to go into CPS in their law department, because in my head, I thought, if I can work for the district, maybe I can stop some of these things from happening before they happen. and that was okay for a while. I would get calls from principals and calls from teachers, and they would say, "Hey, we have this situation. We have this kid who is out of control. We don't know what to do. We locked him in a room so he can have like a calm down, a minute to calm down." And I was like, "Oh, you can't lock a child in a room. Please don't do that. Not like by them, not like, where they were hurt, but like, you can't, please don't do that. Let the child out the room." But it's things like that where they weren't trying to break the law. They were just trying to contain a situation. And that was the best they knew how to do. Like that child needed some more support and the school couldn't give it to them. And so there was a lot of that, a lot of working with folks who, what it taught me was that the policies that are created in Springfield are often, they couldn't be created with teachers in mind or in collaboration with teachers and educators, because if they were, some of these things wouldn't be happening. I was hypothesizing that while I was in the law department at CPS. I then learned that to be true when I left CPS to go work at my current job in the charter space. I know the charter space people have all kinds of issues about the charter space, and I get that. I don't care, mostly because I was a kid who I was a scholarship kid at a really prestigious private school. But we know this, Ashley, if you make one misstep, they would have kicked me out. And they disappeared kids all the time. Like, where is so-and-so? They just gone. And the alternative was, schools in my community just weren't doing it, right? They were not going to get me where I needed to go. And so I believe in I don't care what it is, private, public, charter, or whatever. I believe in any school that's going to get our kids access to as much they can get access to so they can be successful. And that's kind of how I landed in the space, and ended up, randomly going to Springfield. My boss one day was like, "Hey, we need some support down here in the Capitol. Will you go?" Okay, all right, I'll go down there. It was a madhouse. And you're seeing all of these policies flying by, and like no one's testifying on these bills, and no one's talking about these things. And like there's not a teacher or an educator anywhere to be found as these bills are being written and processed. And so that was the beginning of some really a strategic set of policy priorities that included bringing teachers and educators down to Springfield to talk about, like, when you pass a bill like around discipline, around special education, around English language learners, you've got to have educators involved in those conversations. We bring them down. And we test, so you can often find me testifying in front of the Senate or the House on particular bills, and then like turning it over to educators to like talk about the actual impact in the classroom. And so, yeah, over the past, I would say 7 years I've been in my organization, I have written probably close to 30 bills, past, maybe 10 or 11 of those, which is about normal. Like you write them, they go and they die, you bring them back. And so that was the work, and the political work came as an offshoot of that. It was, we're having a hard time passing really good policy, not even around specifically charter stuff, but around like education equity. Like I can remember conversations where there were legislators on the House floor having a debate about why we need to fund low income kids, or why we need to fund kids with disabilities at a higher rate than we fund wealthier white kids in the suburbs. And it was a whole thing. It was like, well, why do these kids need more money? It's a dumb question.
Equity.
But like that wasn't even.
That wasn't a thought.
And again, we weren't even. This was a couple of years ago, so we were still talking about equality. We weren't talking about equity.
We weren't even at equity. Yeah, we're just at equality. Oh my, okay.
Just like we hadn't made it to inclusion yet, we were just still talking about diversity, right? We hadn't even gotten to like, what does it mean to actually include teachers of color in your plans when you're teaching kids of color? What does it mean when, like, yes, every school in the state is getting X amount of dollars, but the way property taxes work, you have kids in the suburbs who are getting X amount of dollars from the state, and then all these property tax dollars, and you think these kids are going to compete at the same level? These kids don't have books. They don't have laptops. They don't have computers in the school. These kids are going to Europe for the summer. Are you okay? Like, work with me here. And sorry, you see me getting passionate now. This is my thing. So that was the impetus for doing the political work, right? It was like, we're having a hard time passing this bill. So what we need to do is we need to help get legislators in office who are going to do this work. And so we spend about $1.5 million a cycle. So about $1.5 million in the primary, $1 million in the general. And we do about 17 races, or somewhere between 14 and 17 races across the state. So this past election, the presidential was crazy, but in my own work, I had 17 of my own state races I was focused on trying to support candidates across the state to like who believe in high quality education for all kids, and particularly Black and brown kids is, ideal. So that's that work. And the chief of staff, like, it's an interesting role. It's, you're kind of playing number two to your boss, and it's helping to move strategy along for the organization, working across teams, making sure there's collaboration across teams. It's like a giant group project all the time. I hate it. Just kidding. I love my job. But it's definitely like trying to move a lot of puzzle pieces around with a lot of different staff members. So that's a new role. I started that role in July, and it's been a learning curve, and I'm drinking from the fire hose for sure still. But I'm so grateful for the team that I work with, just really smart, hardworking people who really care about providing good quality, education to kids. So yeah.
Nice when you actually, no, that was a lot. That was great. Thank you. It's great when you work with people who are all on the same page, right? Right. So I'm so happy that that's working. So what's one piece of advice you would give to your childhood self? Ariel Johnson. Way back when, we're not aging ourselves. What's one piece of advice you would say to that little girl?
Yeah, baby Ariel, and I shouldn't say baby, I would say middle school Ariel in particular. I want to talk to her because that little girl was so insecure, and she just struggled. She struggled so much to figure out where her place was. I had family stuff going on. I didn't feel like I fit in at school, in my grade school. I had not met you and like some of the other folks from SciHat. I had not met other kids whose parents were like my parents, whose mamas were like my mamas, who like would put their foot in our butts to like do what we had to do, who didn't take mess, and who expected a lot from us. I hadn't met y'all yet, these crazy, ambitious, young Black folks. And so I felt like I was an anomaly. I wasn't, but I felt that way. And I got picked on a lot, and it was hard. It was a hard, it was terrible. So what I would say to that little girl is like, you got to be confident in who you are. I know it's easier said than done, but know that this is just a moment in time. And it all felt so heavy. It all felt like I had a pit in my stomach all the time going to school. And some days would be amazing, and some days would be really, really, really challenging. And just to like, this is a moment in time. Don't let the same advice we gave earlier in the segment, like pick your battles. Everything, it does not have to be a fight. People will have an opinion of you. Don't fight for that opinion. Let them have it, because they don't matter. And hang on, little girl, because you are about to find your people. You're about to find your community, and you're about to find a bunch of friends who you will have for life, who will meet you where you are, and you will not feel so alone. So just hold on. I wish I had that little voice. Your mama tells you, oh, it's fine, whatever, you'll be okay. But I did not know and could not have realized that going to high school and finding the community of folks that I found, you, our friend Temi, my friend, there's a bunch of us that we're still really close today. Those were my people. And I felt I felt so much more secure and so much more calm in ways that I hadn't felt in middle school, because I knew that like, oh, I'm not weird. Like, it's not weird. Like, it's cool to be smart. It's cool to work hard. Okay, these are my folks. So I would tell her that, little Ariel.
It's cool to go to summer school and learn more, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, SciHat. It felt like a punishment, but it wasn't. We promise. That's beautiful. No, yeah, it always feels like you're like when you're in the moment, it feels like it's forever, but just keep pushing through. There's light at the end. Trust us. It'll get better. I wanted to insert Sounds of Blackness. What did you say? Did you say Hold On? Was it that song? Hold
Yes,
On, Change is Coming, but I'm
that's
not going to do that to everyone. All right, perfect. So it sounds like from your job, you do a lot. I don't know. We chatted a little bit before this interview, and she is busy. She's busy. So outside of this, pre-COVID, what would you do for fun?
travel. So COVID is killing me on that front. While I am very grateful for the opportunities I have to like, have a job and be stable and all of those things. Oh man, I miss it. So we didn't travel a lot growing up because, obvious reasons. And when we did travel, it was like a big deal. Like my mom would spend a lot of money. We would go I never saw like Yosemite or the Grand Canyon, like things normal kids see. Like they travel to the country. We went to Mexico. Like went to the Bahamas. Like, girl, what is wrong? We are poor. That's what you wanted to do. So like, and that was like, those were the two trips I remember when I was younger. And we didn't do a whole lot more than that, which was fine. I was so grateful for those. But as I got older, I realized that I have a travel bug and there is something for me that does something for me. I love the idea of being uncomfortable when I travel. Like I go to different places, and it forces you to step outside of your own comfort zone to like check your own biases, because even as people of color, we have biases against others. And it forces other people to deal with people like us who folks have biases all the time about Black folks all around the country, right? Or around the world, excuse me. Of course, our country is whatever, but around the world. And they meet a Black person from America and they like, I don't know how many conversations I've had with folks who were just like confused. And we just dialogue. So 2019 was the year of travel for me. And I'm so glad that I had that opportunity because clearly we are stuck here forever. But I did South Africa, South America, all over Europe. I'm missing something.
You're missing something.
Yeah.
I think we're done. Wow. That's amazing.
I was doing some stuff. I got to, hung out in South Africa for just over 2 weeks. Hung out in Ecuador for about the same, and did a lot of that traveling by myself to my parents' and friends' dismay and frustration. But I have this thing about travel where like, I'm not going to ask my friends more than once if they want to come. If you want to come with me. But like when I say I'm booking tickets, I'm going to give you a nice runway. But if you wait too long, you're going to miss the boat. And if I waited for my friends to like, I would never go anywhere. And so I don't recommend it for everyone. But certainly like, I've learned a ton. I got to travel through some indigenous communities in Ecuador, and I got to go to the Amazon rainforest and the Amazon cloud forest. I got to like canoe in in the rainforest where I know there were alligators and snakes and all kinds of crazy things. And also eat dinner with some indigenous communities where I have decent enough Spanish to pretty much get around where I need to go. These folks did not speak Spanish. This was like indigenous languages. And so trying to like navigate just like really beautiful type of, beautiful experiences. So I definitely miss that. And I'm looking forward to getting back on a plane and going literally anywhere. At this point, it doesn't even matter.
A trip to the store has been amazing in these times. It's sad, but I mean, just a walk around the block is great.
I walk around the block, but I have so much anxiety. I haven't been grocery shopping. I've been Instacarting everything.
I send my husband. I don't go to the grocery store.
People don't wear their masks.
They do not. That's very frustrating. They feel they're above you and they can and they're so close. Even the people who do wear their masks, they want to stand close. Don't stand close. I can see you. I can hear you.
Or they like wear under their nose. Like if you're wearing a mask and you're not covering your nose and your mouth,
all the way.
You're defeating the science. You have to cover it all. Help me.
Please. Necklace. Please put it on. Cover it.
You have to, because at that point I'm confused. Like, do you clearly that you understand the need for a mask, but you don't understand the science behind how they work. Like, you have to cover all
of this,
all the breathing apparati on your face. Cover them. Help me help you.
Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, when this is all over and you can travel again, where are you going?
Ooh, great question. Portugal and Spain. That was a trip I was going to do this year. I am looking forward to like some really amazing Spanish wine and some great paella, and also being in a place where I don't have the language, because while I do speak decent Spanish, Spain Spanish is not Central American Spanish, and it is not South American Spanish. And I definitely have zero. I don't know a single Portuguese word. I don't know hello.
Uh-oh.
So out of luck. It's gonna be great.
You better start studying now.
No, I'm just gonna land there and see what happens. Listen, we went to Amsterdam, and Brussels and France in one trip over actually this exact time last year. We went on Thanksgiving. I have zero Dutch. Got no Dutch?
I don't know Dutch.
Not a single. All the signs are in. Listen, you figure it out. It's part of the fun.
It sounds very fun. Actually, it sounds like a really cool adventure. I love that. You're awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Ariel, for joining us. Tell everyone where they can find you or contact you.
Yeah, you can always find me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm definitely on Facebook. If you just put in Ariel Johnson, Ariel N. Johnson, you can find me on Facebook. But if you have questions and want to email me, I'm at ariel.johnson11@gmail.com. So it's ARIEL.Johnson, regular spelling, 11@gmail.com. So email me and I am happy to chat with you or thought partner or just be a listening ear if you have some questions. Come on.
She's awesome. She's really sweet. She's totally amazing. Obviously, she's here. So thank you so much. I'll link all of those in the descriptions across everything. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, thank you guys. Bye.
Bye guys. Thank you.